Hi, my name is Dale Schultz, and I consider myself a lifelong resident of the Brooklyn area here. And what I would like to do is share a little bit of the Brooklyn story through what I used to call the Brooklyn Walk. So we're going to take stops around town, and as we stop, we'll look at what present day Brooklyn looks like at that location. But I'll tell you a story or two from that location that just brings back some of the wonderful past of Brooklyn. And for the Brooklyn kids who came here, it was kind of a parting gift for them, because I always wanted the Brooklyn kids to feel proud coming to school here. And they're part of the Brooklyn story too, just by coming to the school. So I hope you enjoy this little walk around town and some of the stories you'll hear. So one of the first stops we're going to have on our tour is just outside the Brooklyn School itself. And we have this little sign here that is kind of a memory of the Brooklyn schools of the past. And so as we go on our walk, this particular school here, the first school in Brooklyn, we're going to go into an area of Brooklyn where that school actually was located. And we'll tell a little bit more about the story of that school when we get there. So here we are in the Legion Park right now, and buried in the park at this location here is a time capsule that celebrates the 100th birthday of when Brooklyn actually became an official town. Now, there were people living in Brooklyn before we became a town, but the actual town was incorporated or made official in 1905. That's why you'll see all these road signs that have 1905. We were living here way earlier, but when we became an official town, now we could have our own government rules to help make Brooklyn a place where, with better rules, people would want to be here and be happy. Well, this time capsule is celebrating the 100th birthday of when Brooklyn became its official town name. And the kids around the school helped put items from the Brooklyn school in that time capsule at the year 2005. So a great guessing game for kids today is, what do you suppose kids in school would be putting in that time capsule? And consider, you weren't born yet. So things that are part of your life may not have even been invented when that capsule was buried here. The other fun thing is they're going to dig this capsule up in 50 years, and in the year 2055, which you younger kids I hope come back and celebrate, they'll dig that capsule up and see all the fun stuff that the Brooklyn community and school put in there to celebrate the 100th birthday, and then they're going to add new things in that new capsule and put it back in the ground for the 200th birthday. So right now we're in Legion Park, just a few feet away from the time capsule, and this is the location where the first school in Brooklyn was actually located. And it was a two-story building. We saw a picture of that school building at our first stop on our walk. It had 2 floors, 2 levels. The top floor was for the older kids and the bottom floor was for the younger kids. And they had 2 teachers that started out working in that school. One teacher's name was Nellie Gillis, and the other teacher's name was Nellie Brown. Kids went to school there, grades K through 11. We didn't have a 12th grade in this building. If you wanted to go to grade 12, you either had to go to Oregon or Evansville. And there was a young lady named Blanche Devine who wanted to go to grade 12. So she literally got on the train and rode the train to Evansville to go to school for 12th grade. So think about this, kids. How many of you would like to ride the train to school instead of riding the bus to school? So these are the tracks right here where she would have boarded the train and traveled that direction about 7 miles down to Evansville, where she would have attended 12th grade. That school burnt down in 1908. Now, a lot of kids think, oh boy, the school burned down. That would be a happy day. Think how sad it was for Brooklyn when the school burned, because where are the kids going to go to school now? There's no building. So here we are at a building that is still identified for what its purpose was in Brooklyn. It was one of the town blacksmiths. And I remember as a young child living on a farm outside of Brooklyn, where if we broke something on our farm that was a metal tool or a machine, we didn't have money on our farm to go replace things that we had broken. We brought it to the blacksmith. And I remember as a young child coming in and watching how a blacksmith could take a broken piece of metal and basically heat it up and reshape it. And when it cooled, it was like a brand new piece made out of the same metal. And it was almost like magic if you were a little kid watching a blacksmith work. And kids, this blacksmith was still operating in the 1960s. So we're sitting right now in the shade of the gazebo that's located right on the corner of Hotel Street and Commercial Street, right out next to the railroad tracks, straight out as I'm pointing, would have been the location of Brooklyn's depot. So having a depot in Brooklyn was a huge deal because this meant that the town was going to grow. Things that were brought into Brooklyn, for instance, the first vault for the Bank of Brooklyn was brought from Ohio around 1900. The stained glass windows for the Methodist Church actually were brought in by train for the Methodist Church. As refrigerated cars were invented, now we had a chance to send our cheeses and our butters that were made here at our local creameries. They could be put on those refrigerated cars and sent as far away as Minneapolis or down to Chicago. One of the favorite things that people used to do they would try to jump on and off the trains as they were still moving through Brooklyn. And they actually passed one of their new town rules when they became an incorporated village: no more touching trains while they're moving. It was just too dangerous. One gentleman jumped off a moving train just outside of Brooklyn and broke his legs. And by the time he tried to crawl to his farm, because he didn't want to come to Brooklyn because the train was passing by his farmhouse not too far away, and he thought he could take the shortcut. Well, he didn't survive that jump, and he ended up freezing in the cold with 2 broken legs. Another little 3-year-old baby was actually killed on the train tracks as the train was coming through. The engineer on the train thought that was just a pile of clothes on the tracks and didn't even attempt to stop the train until they found out it was a little baby that was actually sitting right in the middle of the tracks. Something had caught the baby's attention and it didn't get up. If you follow the trains out of Brooklyn north towards Oregon, a train was heading towards Oregon and there was a pile of logs stashed across the tracks, and the train luckily stopped before it derailed from those logs. They cleared all the logs away and continued their trip. A while later, another train was coming through and those logs were back on the tracks again, and they finally found out it was a little orphan boy that was a teenager who was living by himself, and he thought it would be great fun to see what logs across the tracks would do to a train that was moving. And when they finally caught that young man, sent to a boys' school in Waukesha because he had no family, and they thought, well, at least we can get him to school, and he'll become a better adult after he gets his education than just living on his own. One of the sisters, her name was Mame, she was engaged to be married, and her fiance had a terrible accident and died. And that young gal was so saddened with the death of her fiance that she went back up into her apartment and didn't...